We learned a bit more about the future of Assassin's Creed thanks to a recent Ubisoft financial call. We already know that Assassin's Creed Infinity is coming likely at the end of 2024 or maybe even later, as it's still in early development, as we saw in their blog post. We actually got a bit of interesting info on that project and on what happens before that. Like, what can we expect in 2022 and 2023, because it actually seems that Ubisoft is doubling down on Assassin's Creed for this new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series generation. Seems that it will not be similar to those previous console cycles though. Everything we know in this big Sunday video, including some rumors about a potential new game. Of course, if you like these Sunday Your Game shows, then totally leave a like on the video, would really help me out. And let's go. Let's actually start with Assassin's Creed Infinity. We of course have no footage or screenshots of this project yet. The only big thing we know is that it seems to contain multiple settings with room to expand to others in the months and years following its debut. So instead of one setting, the game will likely already have 2 or maybe 3 by the time it launches. And to give you an idea of how early this project is, Jason also notes on Bloomberg that in April, so this year, Ubisoft unified the Montreal and Quebec teams. Now they will collaborate on Infinity, so they started only a few months ago, which is pretty wild because Valhalla was already 1 year in development around the launch of Odyssey in October 2018. During the financial call, Ubisoft said the following regarding projects codenamed Infinity. We have exciting plans for the future, the potential to significantly expand the brand's reach and recurring profile, while holding true to the AC legacy of rich narrative experiences. So yes, Ubisoft themselves also confirmed that Infinity will be mostly a narrative-focused experience, kind of what we discussed before. While live service mostly means multiplayer, Infinity should have a lot of single-player stories too. Investors asked if this means that after Infinity we will not get any more games, but Ubisoft was kinda dodgy about that. We had 6 mainline Assassin's Creed titles during the Xbox One and PS4 generation, if you count Black Flag as well. It's at least safe to assume that that won't happen again this time around. But what is interesting that they said is that in the meantime, so before Infinity, we come with a very powerful content program every year with high quality narrative experiences. Big focus on pushing Valhalla to higher levels for the year 2 post-launch. So every year we should expect quite a lot of new Assassin's Creed content, even though Infinity again is, I think, at the end of 2024 if everything goes according to plan. We already know that 2022 is mostly focused on Valhalla DLC. It seems that Ubisoft Sofia, who also did the Curse of the Varus DLC for Origins, are going to do some mythical expansions for Valhalla. We might be going to Muspelheim, likely Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarves, will be included as well. We might meet Ivaldi again, who at the end of the main game, a mythical storyline, goes to the realm of the dwarves, as we see in footage from Christophorus. And Ubisoft also noted during the financial call that Valhalla's second year of content will surprise players. So it will likely not look the same as the first year, which I think is interesting. And I will go more in depth on what we know about the second year soon. But in this video, I also want to look beyond Valhalla, because in 2022 we might see another Assassin's Creed project as well, which may be not as exciting. I will totally try it out when it releases. And that's the AAA Assassin's Creed mobile game in collaboration with Tencent. Seems to be set in China. I think the art used as a job posting in 2022 looks pretty cool. And it makes sense that they want to reach a broader audience by putting effort in a big open world, I would assume, mobile game. So we will have to wait and see. Like, this could soft launch in 2022, although they might need more time if they started just a year ago. But Ubisoft's big push into free-to-play games extends to console and PC. With Tom Clancy's X Defiant, they got a free-to-download Trackmania game, and Roller Champions and Division Heartland should be out before April 2022. In my previous video going over Ubisoft's broader future plans, I noted that it's obvious that at one point Assassin's Creed will follow with a free-to-play title. They basically said recently that now is the time for free-to-play games across all their biggest franchises. Seems like they are testing the waters first with lesser-known games before they try it with their biggest bangers like Far Cry, Rainbow Six, and Assassin's Creed. And well, looks like they're already working on a multiplayer Assassin's Creed game, according to Nick, who leaked the Ghost of Tsushima Iki Island expansion, among some other things, way before we knew about the director's cut, which we now know is of course coming on August 20th. On the Xbox Era podcast a few weeks ago, he said the following.
I believe they're fiddling and they're tinkering with the idea of like a free-to-play, multiplayer-focused Assassin's Creed game that could have like raids and stuff and everything. And apparently they have...
So an MMO.
I'm not saying that. I don't know if it's an MMO. That's not what I haven't heard the word MMO used at all from any of my three sources.
Well, if it's got raids, it's probably MMO-like at least.
I don't know. I've never played an MMO to know.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? 3 different sources. Again, Nick has been right quite a lot of times before. We of course had the Unity co-op already, which still felt like a tryout for the full multiplayer standalone thing. And Ghost of Tsushima Legends, that of course launched last year, really showed that you can have a really cool co-op experience next to your single player open world RPG. That game had a really cool raid too. It's actually weird that Sony, known for their single player games, is doing this before Ubisoft. So I think it only makes sense that there is a free-to-play multiplayer Assassin's Creed coming. And what I also found interesting is that, going back to that Infinity blog post, that they are saying that we wanted to share some key updates on the talented and creative minds that will be working in a collaborative cross-studio structure between Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec that will guide, grow, evolve, and define the overall future of Assassin's Creed. That includes an important upcoming early in development project codenamed Assassin's Creed Infinity. It includes that, implying that there are more puzzle pieces that are part of the future of Assassin's Creed. They note a ton of names in the blog post regarding developers who are taking the lead of Assassin's Creed Infinity for both studios. But what I thought was interesting is that one important person is missing from this blog, and that's Scott Phillips, who was a game director on Syndicate, Odyssey, and Immortals Phoenix Rising. And now we actually on his LinkedIn see that since July 2020, so 5 months before Immortals came out and was likely in its polishing state, he already moved on to become a creative director on a new unannounced project, which he now has been making for a year and 2 months. As I told you in my previous Sunday video, Ubisoft started their development for free-to-play games 2 years ago and now already has some titles almost ready to go. So I would not be surprised if Scott is leading this free-to-play Assassin's Creed initiative. Sure, he mostly worked on single-player games, but before Ubisoft Quebec, he was known for his developments on Saints Row, as we also see on his LinkedIn page. And that game, of course, is kind of known for its co-op multiplayer too. I can see them do more Immortals, although it is still possible, but Scott did not work on the DLCs for that game. It's at least a fact that there are 2 big projects in the work at Quebec right now from the looks of it. What this second project next to Assassin's Creed Infinity is unclear. But again, I would not be surprised if it turns out to be this free-to-play Assassin's Creed. But there are so many other things that Ubisoft can do before the release of Infinity. I think it's pretty wild that we haven't seen an Origins or Odyssey next-gen upgrade yet. You can play Unity and some other Ubisoft games in 60 FPS on the Xbox Series consoles, but this doesn't apply to Origins and Odyssey. While those games still sell relatively well, while they are of course years old at this point. I don't think this is going to happen, but what if we, out of nowhere, get new content for Assassin's Creed Odyssey now that Ubisoft Quebec is like full force working on Assassin's Creed again? With them selling more than 10 million units of Odyssey, and the game got like a huge boost during the pandemic, I totally think a lot of people will come back if they make new content. And yes, I mention it in every future Assassin's Creed video, an AC1 remake has to come at some point. I would not be surprised if that's the Assassin's Creed game we get at the end of 2023, because again, they want to release something every year. They kinda had a bad start, of course, with the Prince of Persia remake, not really looking good. Will be interesting to see how that turns out. It's now planned for before April 2022, but even if that's a failure, I do think they will pull the trigger on an AC1 remake. Like, they must be looking at Dead Space remake, which EA is doing because Capcom is making a ton of money on the Resident Evil remakes, selling them for full price. So I really think it's a question of when and not if we get an AC1 remake. So to recap, 2022 will really be focused on Valhalla. We will likely see support till the end of the year. I have pretty high hopes for it. And then a mobile game maybe in 2022. Then 2023, it's kind of like what's gonna happen. We know they are going to do stuff, but I think that's when the free-to-play game will launch. Maybe an AC1 remake, although I'm less certain about that than the free-to-play game. And then in 2024, I think they will start hyping up Infinity, likely like Valhalla. In May we get a trailer or something, and then it will release at the end of the year. I think that's kind of the near future for Assassin's Creed. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. A like on the video would of course really help me out. But wait! Of course, I first want to answer one of your questions, which you can also put in the comments under this video, and then I might answer it in the next Sunday video. And last week I got a question from Broken Bridge, who asked, what is your ideal Assassin's Creed game? And I want to take this question a little broader and talk about the ideal Assassin's Creed future, since we're talking about the future of Assassin's Creed in this video. And I think we might get to this scenario during this new generation. The biggest problem with Valhalla was, next to the forced story arcs that made the game unnecessarily long, is the lack of focus. Like, they wanted to make an RPG, but also like more like the old school games. But I think by the end of it, people who came from Odyssey, who wanted like stats and all those systems, were disappointed with what Valhalla had to offer. And the people who wanted an old school Assassin's Creed game were also disappointed because, okay, they brought back social stealth, but yeah, it's not really working, you're not really using it, right? And there are, of course, many examples. What I hope is that Infinity will be this RPG platform. It will be like Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, and extend over time. So what we're seeing with Valhalla now, we're getting a 2-year post-launch plan. We're kind of all used to that, right? We're playing it for a long time. That will be Infinity, but on a way bigger scale. Then, if you prefer the older games, 10 to 20 hours, no microtransactions, then you will get those remakes, right? Maybe every other year they will release a remake and go do the Altair game, then all the Ezio games. That would be wild. And yeah, if you like the parkour, the action-adventure style, go play that. If you want to play with your friends, then play the multiplayer free-to-play game they also have. Like, I think that would actually be pretty cool as well. And if they have a separate multiplayer game, then it won't impact the single-player stories that we still want. I think that would be ideal. So, yeah, that's kind of my ideal future. Like 3 separate games that are all doing their own thing without them trying to put it all in one game, and then nobody is kind of happy. And I have high hopes for the Valhalla post-launch. I think they have been doing a great job these last couple of months. So, I hope it turns into this better game, and they're actually moving more in the RPG direction, which they maybe should have done from the beginning. But yeah, I do get that if you prefer the older games, that you're kind of left in the dark. So I hope that they talk to you about, like, with the remakes. Yeah, again, let me know what you think. Subscribe for way more content about Assassin's Creed, of course. Siege of Paris is coming up. I cannot say anything about it, but just keep it locked to the channel. A like on the video would really help me out. And check out our previous Sunday video on the future of Ubisoft in the broader sense. Are they losing touch? Kinda. I compare them to EA. I want them to be more like EA. What? Why am I saying that? Watch that video by clicking on the screen. For now, I will speak to you next time. Goodbye.